he rises to the opposition. I think he took Ngannou too lightly. I don't think he'll take Usyk too lightly.
Props to Jordan Gill as well, by the way. I mean, it was a real fight.
What
Body
does
shots.
props mean, Spence?
Props.
Yeah, what does it mean? What's it
Props.
abbreviate?
Like credit.
That's why Frank saying that it might be challenging going forward, and you thinking that you can turn this into a pay-per-view model probably doesn't work.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 69 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. This episode is being recorded just prior to the 5v5 press conference that you're running off to this afternoon,
Yes,
Spence.
I am, Simon, yep.
Well, let's start with that, shall we? You're right, by the way.
Yeah, very
Not
well.
really that interested. Let's move on. Yeah.
What do you mean not interested? I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
It's a false
You look very
answer.
well, by the way.
I've already asked you how you were off air.
You look very well.
Do you like that media when people come in and go, how are you? And they already know how you are because they've spoken to you in the corridor.
You don't know how I am.
I never ask how Jim is because I couldn't care less for a start. And he's already told me about his ailments, his piles and his athlete's foot and whatever else he's got. But anyway.
Yeah,
listen,
but you generally do care how I am.
I do.
Yeah,
I
I'm
do.
fine, thank
because
you.
you make me look better. Anyway, let's get on with the 5v5. I mean, it's something you like. It's an interesting format. Well, it's an interesting opportunity because clearly with the introduction of Saudi money, it's now facilitating more solutions. It's got two major adversaries historically in Queensbury and Matchroom working together because the money in the room is making these decisions helpful. But you've got a real interest in this and a real sort of appreciation of it, haven't you?
Yeah, I definitely have, you know, because I like the format. I like the five best in each camp, 5 versus 5. I think it works really well that, you know, when you're looking at some of these fighters, there has to be a title on the line before they'd step up and fight. But now these fights can be made. There doesn't necessarily have to be a title on the line. And you're right in what you say, it is because of the money in the room. Frank Warren actually come on talkSPORT on Saturday Fight Night on Saturday saying, look, this is why it's achievable, because of the money, because of the investment that we can make these shows. But I just like the format. I like the idea of it. You know, when you're looking at cards, Simon, you go to enough boxing shows to know that sometimes you see a card and it's stacked 10 fights and you go, he wins, he wins, he wins, he wins. You know where it is, you know how it's going, and it's sort of like, you know, I understand the process of young fighters having to come through and whatnot, but the 5v5 is a good format because I think you can go there and, you know, it's not just the top of the bill you're looking forward to or the chief support, you're looking forward to the whole card. I like it, and I think that they could use that, not just on these big shows out in Saudi Arabia, it could be used over here in this country as well, you know, with the small hall promoters, 5 versus 5, you know, seeing that and seeing some kids, and we'll find stars from that, we'll find, you know, future stars from that. So I do like the format.
But it basically throws up from the position of taking away the objection in the rooms about broadcasting arguments and financial challenges. Those are all sort of removed from the equation because the Saudis are in the middle of it going, okay, we want to see, certainly right now while we're putting our sort of stake in the ground, that we want to put the best, you know, the best fights on, and not just the top fights where it's very, you know, where you've got Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, or you've got what we've recently had, which I didn't consider a top fight, but it was a spectacle with Joshua versus Ngannou and Fury versus Ngannou and the undercards that went with those. And of course, recently when we saw the big event in Saudi at Christmas, where we saw the card being stacked from top to bottom.
Yeah, sure.
The Saudis are making this happen. It'd be interesting to see how it can translate, because it's one thing saying we have 5 fighters from each camp. In Saudi, money's no object, really. It takes that away. The economic viability of the event isn't that important right now.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how you think, besides your assertion that you like the idea of a card that features 5 pick-em fights to some extent, right? And showcasing 5 really good spectacles from top to bottom. But it'd be interesting to see how that translates when there isn't the money in the room, when it does become simply an exercise of taking a format that may not have economic viability at its centre, has boxing at its centre, building out the reputations of the Saudis and their preparedness to put on big spectacles across all of the weight classes, and not just this sort of Hollywood end of the equation. But when it gets down to what you think it will get down to, I wonder how that will translate, because you'll still have the same problems. If you think Frank and Eddie are dance partners now forever,
do you think,
I think you're wrong.
Broadcasters will, you know, it could actually bring broadcasters together, and we could see it on 2 platforms, landing on 2 platforms, because that's always been the politics of boxing with, you know, I say a Frank Warren fighter versus an Eddie Hearn fighter. It's
money.
about what platform it lands on, where it goes.
It's all about money.
But the 5v5 format, I'm saying, could you see that, like where you could see these promoters that are working together and doing all this stuff? Yes, this Saudi investment, but when they're doing it over here with these shows, do you think that it could be a changing of the times, and you could actually see both broadcasters airing these fights?
Well, look, the philosophy, from what I can work through, is not about the profitability of these events for the Saudis. It's about seeding the opportunity to believe that the Saudis are going to make the best fights across all of boxing and change the direction. They'll have looked at it very strategically and gone, what is the criticisms? Fights don't happen. People don't fight with people when they should. Too many undercards aren't put together with fights that really give you jeopardy in them. So we can operate in that marketplace. We can achieve that outcome because we don't have a problem with the cost implications of it. When you take it back to where perhaps the Saudis aren't involved in a situation with the finances and you've got a fight scenario in the UK, I'll be interested and would debate whether you'd get the same sort of input from the promoters, because they've seen the vision now, because the vision's been presented to them, with due respect. Frank had to engineer this deal. Eddie was over there before with relationships with Skills Challenge and whoever else he was talking to initially. Frank's opened the door, everyone's walked through it, and the two major promoters are playing nicely with one another now. I don't know whether that will translate into an ongoing set of circumstances in the way that you hope it might do.
Well, I think the big problem is, speaking again to Frank on Saturday night, was that Frank's saying, look, it's just not financially achievable. If you've got 5 versus 5 of the best fights, like I said to you, the fights I'd like to see over here, if it can continue over here, would be great. But it's just the financial implications of it.
This is the motivation you see.
That's where it is. And I go like, well, what about if you had a 5v5 over here and we're seeing it on a more regular basis, but they're doing it on a pay-per-view scale, a smaller pay-per-view scale, where you're going a $3.99 or $4.99 pay-per-view scale, but you know you're getting 5 of the best fights.
Look at the resistance to pay-per-view. If you stick football on television, we saw a statistic the other day, completely different sport, where you got the Champions League, massive Champions League football game, and 600,000 people watched it. But with due respect to women's football, you had an international game on there and 2 million people watched it because it's on terrestrial TV. The idea that you can put things behind a paywall and still attract big audiences is probably flawed. And the point I'm making, which you just picked up on, and which I was labouring, is the motivation for Frank and Eddie is different to the Saudis. The Saudis are building up an empire. They're building up an iconography of what boxing should look like. And they're not worried right now how much money they may or may not lose on individual events, because they're building up a bigger picture. And eventually that picture will become economically viable and successful. Whereas Frank and Eddie run their businesses slightly differently, and perfectly understandable. They've got to make money, or at least get a chance of making money, on every show they put out. So it's a very different dynamic. And that's why Frank saying that it might be challenging going forward, and you thinking that you can turn this into a pay-per-view model, probably doesn't work. But you know what? We'll see. And you know, the more that the Saudis are playing, I don't like all the deference and all the backside kissing. I struggle with that. But I respect the idea that we're getting fights now, and that it's because of the Saudis' money. And it's not. I don't resist that and go, oh, I don't want the Saudis involved. I just find it sometimes a little bit. Everyone walking around saying, you know, His Excellency, for reasons that motivates themselves, because they're getting paid huge amounts of money to be in that.
I think from the fans' point of view, you go, well, listen, we're getting the fights that we want.
And that's
they don't care about the politics of it and all the arse-licking or whatever's going on.
And that's
what it's about.
And that's absolutely right. And that's the bigger picture. Talking about arse-kissing, let's talk about Tyson Fury. We haven't kissed his arse for a while, and I'm not likely to anytime soon.
He looks great, by the way.
But I have to say, his arse. You're about the right height for him,
I don't know where he was going with that.
You're about the right height for it. Well, you're normally hanging out the back of Anthony Joshua, so you might as well have a look up Tyson's as well.
The conversation was that he looks great in the moment.
But we saw the press conference. Or we saw Tyson speaking to the press, right, from the delightful heights of Morecambe. I know what I thought when I was watching Tyson Fury, but I'm very interested to see what you took away from Tyson Fury and the observations it was making. There were several strands to it, wasn't there? There was the debate about what a cruiserweight can do. And I didn't think he needs to be in that territory. He doesn't need to debate whether Alexander Usyk's a cruiserweight and diminish him by that argument. It just beats him in the ring, right? But he did. And then we talked, and then there was this other discussion about the things he said and his body language. So let's kick off with Tyson talking about the size side of things, the fact that a cruiserweight can't really step up and beat an elite big heavyweight, and that's his default setting.
Yeah.
What did you make of that?
Just that's the mind games beginning already. Tyson Fury's, that's one of his main assets, is that he does play the mind games, and he plays them well.
Yeah.
He gets inside fighters' heads, and we know it's all a psychological battle and trying to win fights or trying to half win fights before they even step into the ring. Alexander Usyk's a little bit too smart for that, but that was Tyson Fury doing what he does best. I think reading his body language from the press conference the other day, I think he looked fantastic, and a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter. And the way that he was talking, you know, the way that he was relaxed, he was opening up. We've seen him a little bit more tense and a little bit more uptight in previously, but yeah, he looks switched on. He looks like he's on the game, that is for sure. You know, when he's talking about the history of the sport and cruiserweights getting found out as they step up, sort of disagree with that, if I'm totally honest, because you're talking about Evander Holyfield. We use Evander Holyfield as an example, and you look at Evander Holyfield. He beat Riddick Bowe in that first fight. They had an unbelievable trilogy, but he did actually beat Riddick Bowe. He beat Mike Tyson twice, stopped Mike Tyson twice. And I know the argument, possibly from you or wherever, will come and say Tyson was gone by then. I'll go, yeah, but it remains
on his way to being gone.
Yeah, absolutely. It was still in 1999, I think it was, wasn't it? So you just look at that and you go, well, there's...
But I will tell you, Spence, I went to both the Holyfield-Lewis's fights, right? I went to the Madison Square Garden.
And Holyfield-Lennox Lewis. A lot of people felt he won the first fight as well.
No, Holyfield didn't win the first fight. Lennox Lewis categorically won the first fight. It was daylight robbery.
Yeah.
The second fight they gave to Lewis,
I felt
Holyfield won that fight.
Yeah.
So the suggestion that Holyfield, that Tyson is making, is that if you're a good cruiserweight and a world-class cruiserweight, and you come up against a world-class big heavyweight, the cruiserweight will lose because the world-class big heavyweight is going to be too big, too strong, and too much for them.
Sure.
And to some extent, that argument stacks up in some respects, but it doesn't in others, does it?
No, exactly that. I mean, you're opening up a debate there, and people will feel one way or the other. In this instance, by the way, with these two fighters, and with Tyson Fury not just being a giant of a man, but his boxing IQ and the way that he fights, and he knows the way that he's... And the talk that he's been talking as well, talking about the body shots, and he's a crybaby when he gets hit to the body, and this is his weakness.
Well, that was Frank
and
said that. But Frank said that, didn't he?
Tyson said that as well in past interviews. But you look at that and you go, he's talking the right talk here, Tyson Fury. He knows what he's got to do. He knows what he's got to drag Alexander Usyk into, and he has the ability to do that. He has the mindset to do that. He's clever enough to do that.
But it was a presser solely for creating a landscape of playing with Alexander Usyk's mind from another number of perspectives. By starting this discussion, he's starting to seed into the mind of the people around Usyk and Usyk himself. Is you can't win this fight, I'm too big. You can't win this fight, I'm too big.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of the press conference, or whatever it was for Tyson Fury to let people know what his thinking was, or what he was going to be doing in terms of his strategy of playing. Like when he did with Klitschko, he played with Klitschko's mind. But in a different way, he made Klitschko think he was a loon coming in a Batman outfit, and completely. I mean, I still think the best line of all times is "I'm going to lick that." I still think that's the best line of all time, and that goes up there with anything that I've ever heard from anybody. It's a great one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he's doing this from a different perspective. He unsettled Klitschko, got him off balance, didn't know what he was dealing with. Started singing before in live workouts. Did the thing that I did, running a Batman outfit. Now he's going at Usyk a different way, but he's also beyond the cruiserweight debate and that argument. About the fact that a good big one will always beat a good small one. Well, there was also this real, and I haven't seen it for a while from Tyson Fury, this relaxed self-assuredness and humour, and not stupid humour, humour where he's calling everybody a hater. There was an observation about haters. People criticising you doesn't mean they hate you, Tyson. And I think he kind of approach that. He did make a good point of saying that I'll be the person that's remembered in history, not the people that criticise me. And I think that's a fair point.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
But he also then went on to say that productive criticism, is something you can listen and take on board, which is what most people have done with him, by the way.
Absolutely.
And he called them haters.
But his mannerisms and his approach to this fight is, like you say, he seems in such a good place. You go, I think that he was saying one of his worst fears coming into this fight one of his worst fears is that he's actually ready now today.
Yeah, I heard that.
And he goes like, you know, he goes like, my thing now is about just keeping it there, not going over the top. Because I've got to tell you, if a fighter overtrains, it's like you go right back to the beginning. So, you know, I mean, he's mentally, physically in a really good place. The cut really could have been a blessing in disguise for him, because picking up that cut may have give everybody the kick up the arse that they needed, and maybe give him the time that he needed. Because,
but he knew,
like Frank said on Saturday, Simon, it's not now just a battle of losing the weight with Tyson Fury. He started this camp with a weight down already, so that's why he's in such a good place, because he's had that time to work on everything else.
But each has it has a yin and a yang. Now there's a potential worry that, you know, that he's ready now and could be doing things in the next 5 or 6 weeks that ultimately take him off the boil. But then there was the situation where he might not have been taking it seriously enough, and the cut did him a favour. So there's a yin and a yang. Yeah. But I've always felt, irrespective of some of the things that he said over the last 12 months that I haven't particularly liked, and some of his behaviour and those around him I haven't particularly liked, I've always felt that when it came to this fight, irrespective of some of the comments that he's made about me and I'm made about him, I've always felt, and we've always said it, or I certainly have, that I think he'll be ready for the Usyk fight, and you'll see the best version of Tyson Fury. And all the arguments about whether he stands in the middle of the ring and trades now because his legs can't take it, or he doesn't physically condition himself, or this, that, and the other, I think they'll all fall away. I think that it's like he rises to the opposition. I think he took Ngannou too lightly. I don't think he'll take Usyk too lightly. But what I really liked was the humour, you know, this idea that he's going to fight 10 times. He's sending himself up a little bit. I'll fight this person. I might even give old Deontay Wilder a chance. Yeah. I'll fight this person.
He's got Joyce.
But the one I liked,
Anthony Joshua
the humour, Moses Atuma. Oh, I'm not having him. And I thought that was the thing that I took away from it, going, oh, you're so relaxed and you're so comfortable in your space and your skin right now that I like this version of you. Yeah. I think you're ready to go. Yeah. And I think the more Tyson Fury is ready to go, the more ominous that is for Alexander Usyk, because I know what we know about Usyk. I know that he's a machine, that the Joshua camp will talk about him as being the most fittest fighter that you could ever put breath into, and his resolve and his resilience is of the highest caliber. Yeah. But actually Joshua fought him the wrong way in the first fight, created a challenge for himself in the second fight psychologically. Yeah. And he's not really fought anybody like Tyson Fury, because Anthony didn't use his best attributes in the first fight, then fought up an uphill battle in the second, whereas Fury goes into this fight, and Usyk goes into this fight having had a bit of damage done to him by Daniel Dubois. Yeah. Right? And Fury at his best, I still maintain, irrespective of what Usyk has done, would beat Alexander Usyk. Totally
agree. I think that I think that what Alexander Usyk done with the Anthony Joshua, in the first Anthony Joshua fight and the second one, was he took away Anthony Joshua's main assets. And Anthony Joshua never had that adaptability to do anything else. He never had the game plan. First fight and the second fight, effectively.
Anthony took his own, but didn't Anthony take away his own attributes?
Well, I think
trying to be a bit long on him.
Yeah, no, but in the first fight, and in the second fight, when he tried to take the fight to him, Usyk took that away from him, didn't allow it to happen.
But psychologically, Anthony
wasn't
lost
there.
The first fight.
Exactly right. So there's reasons behind it. But what I'm saying is, Usyk adapted to both of those situations, and he handled it well. With Tyson Fury is a guy that will, he has got the space. He will feint a lot. He will try to create openings, but he also will try and take him into a fight as well. But he has the size and the physicalities to be able to do that. Where Usyk took that away from Joshua, because maybe Joshua psychologically wasn't there. With Fury, he is there. Mentally, he looks great coming in the build-up to this one, and he will take him into deep waters, and he will take... So it's going to be a case of, can Alexander Usyk build up an early lead, and can his engine take him on to kick on later on in the contest? Or will Fury just be too big, too strong? And like he says, a good big one will beat a good little one. And in this case, we're going to get that. It's about generational grace, and he's out there to prove that.
I don't think, do you, really, that any of the antics that Fury does now, any of the observations that he makes and keeps on diminishing Alexander Usyk about his size, about his size, you can't win, you're too small, you're too small. I don't think any of that is going to have any effect on Alexander Usyk.
Definitely not.
I don't think that's going
to... He's not that animal, he's not that character.
That way, is he?
No, he's not that character, like Usyk's been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt. So none of that's going to affect him. All that's going to happen... Look, this is all about trying to get into the other guy's head, the mind games. Fury does that. Usyk's not that guy. He won't take the bait. He's not that type of guy. But this is about who gets themselves mentally right as they do that ring walk. And like you said there, you know, we keep highlighting it. Tyson Fury looks in a great headspace, and that makes him a very, very different opposition.
How many more times are we going to see them, media-wise, before the fight? In terms of how many more presses have they got to do?
I'm really not sure. I mean, they've had that one now. Tyson Fury goes out to Saudi Arabia. They'll be getting down, and then it'll be really, I think, the down to the fight week. Then once they have that fight week, both guys now will be, you know, in full training, because they've got a couple of weeks now to just get the final preparations right. You know,
the reason why I asked that, I just wanted to see if we were seeing a roadmap, a quick roadmap of what you think the attitude will develop in terms of, do you think that Usyk will get a bit more spikier or just stay the same way? Do you think Tyson will get a bit more tenser as it gets nearer to the event? Or do we think, has a die been cast?
I think it's been done. I totally believe that. Like, whereas other big fights in the past we've seen, you know, when Lennox Lewis has been in, say, Evander Holyfield or whatever, and they do tours, like they do world tours, really. They go to London, they'll be in New York, they'll be going, you know, they got all over the place. We won't get that with this. These guys haven't got to do that road tour because they haven't got to do that map. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've done the press conference here, Tyson Fury, as they go over there. Then they'll have the fight week where they're doing that. Now it's all about preparations. We're talking about undisputed. Like, these guys are both going to be switched on and focused. But yeah, I think that was Fury's last attempt at trying to dangle the carrot, get Alexander Usyk to bite a little bit, try and get inside his head. But as you said, they're too professional for that.
I also think that we do attribute a lot to mind games. I actually do think that Tyson Fury believes what he's saying. I think he believes that I'm a big fighter, and irrespective of how good you may or may not be, you can't beat me, I'm too good, and I'm too big. So I think whilst we say it's mind games, I also think it's coming from a position of this is what he thinks.
Yeah.
And we say it's mind games because that's the thing that we like to attribute to. But anyway, listen, moving on from what people think and what people may not think. Anthony Yarde and leaving Queensbury and moving on from Queensbury, which I have to say I'm surprised by.
I'm sort of disappointed, if I'm honest. Spoke to Frank about that on Saturday as well. There? So I spoke to Frank about it, and he said, look, Anthony Yarde now says he's a free agent now, and he's looking at options and looking, you know, the Joshua Buatsi fight was being made. They were under negotiations there. Well, Frank Warren said on Saturday night, let me tell you, he is not a free agent. He's still under contract with us. That's where we see it. And if he wants to go down that road, you know, we've got a history of this. I don't really want to do that. He's a lovely guy, Anthony Yarde, but he's getting advised terribly. And whoever's giving him that advice could effectively cost him a lot of money, he said, because we're going to have to go through this system like I've done before with previous fighters. And we will, if it has to end up in court, it will end up in court. So, like, he's saying, look, we are trying to make the fight with Joshua Buatsi. Buatsi's rang me last week to say, where are we at? He said, we're trying to get that fight over the line. It's going to be very profitable for both guys. But for some weird reason now, Anthony Yarde's saying, hold a minute, I'm a free agent. I mean, does that make any sense to you?
Well, it's either a fact or it's not. I mean, I'm sure Frank will suggest, quite rightly, that if he's under contract with him, that's the end of the conversation. And I'm sure that anything that ultimately detracts from Frank's relationship with Anthony Yarde, Frank will consider to be bad advice.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that it is. It just may not be the advice that Frank wants him to have, right? And I'm not suggesting that Frank's wrong or right. It's a matter of fact. I remember having a conversation with Frank Warren 2 or 3 years ago about the making of the fight between Joshua and Fury, and Fury's inability to get out of the contract he had with Deontay Wilder.
Right.
And Frank was adamant he could get out of the contract with Deontay Wilder.
Yeah.
And he couldn't.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Arbitration determined
arbitration,
that, right? And in this instance, it'll be very simple. Unless he's got people that are stupid, that are really stupid and can't read the contract, he's either under an obligation to Queensbury or he's not.
Yeah.
And if he's not under an obligation to Queensbury, then he'll do as he pleases.
Frank says he's under obligation. You can only go by what the promoter is telling you.
Every contract lasts for a period of time.
Yeah.
So if he's under obligation to Frank in perpetuity, i.e. ad infinitum, going forward, then Frank, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But what I am disappointed is I think Frank has got him good fights.
That's where I'm with you.
Frank has done a good job for him.
Kovalev, Beterbiev, you go like he's earned him a lot of money.
Yeah. And the Kovalev fight was a great match for him because he wasn't really at that. He got that fight early.
Yeah.
In terms of his development.
2019. I mean, he was still.
And he could have won it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he has had those opportunities, and you go now. You're talking about a fight, and when you look at the landscape and what's going on today, we're going to the press conference for Beterbiev versus. Dimitri Bivol, you go, that's for the undisputed. So those titles are tied up. You're looking around and looking and going, right, You got Anthony Yarde versus Joshua Buatsi, a fight that could end up as a stadium fight over here. Negotiations are ongoing. These guys will earn a phenomenal amount of money. Forget the titles, because the titles are tied up. There'll be a rematch clause in that as well. So why are you doing that? From a business point of view, you go, that is the fight both fighters want it. Buatsi wants it badly. So Anthony Yarde, I'm going, why wouldn't you take that fight,
But it's interesting where
else are you going to go?
Where does Anthony Yarde think he's going to go? Because I'll tell you
where are you going to go?
It would be interesting. He won't be going to Matchroom, will he?
Yeah.
Because I don't think there would be too much of love lost between Frank and Eddie if he suddenly rocks up at Matchroom, given the fact that they are now very much bedfellows, aren't they?
Absolutely, you know.
So that'll be interesting to see where he lands. Maybe it's time, maybe Boxer come in and hoover him up.
Well,
if indeed he's able to come out of contract.
It's interesting. Yeah, but I just think it's a silly move. I don't know what like you say, I don't know what the contractual side of things are. But for me, that was the obvious fight. Frank was going to make that fight. Earn them a hell of a lot of money. So I don't know what advice Anthony Yarde's getting, or where he thinks he's going, or what he thinks the next move will be. Apart from Joshua Buatsi, it seems insane.
Well, there was a discussion about Callum Smith, wasn't there?
Yeah, I know, but Buatsi Yarde right now coming, you know, like Joshua Buatsi coming off the win against Dan Aziz, Anthony Yarde, you know, coming off the creditable defeat against Beterbiev, you just go, right, you're in a really good spot right now to make a huge fight.
And well, he's had a couple of fights since he's come back.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is coming off that credible defeat against Beterbiev. Yeah,
do you think there's any irritation that maybe he hasn't yet featured on a Saudi card?
No, because I think that, you know, like if you're looking at the longevity of stuff, you go, that will come in time. It's not just going to happen. Like,
well, especially for Anthony, because he's an exciting fighter.
By the way, in the 5v5, and I don't know that I'm right on this one, but this is just one of the rumours that I'm hearing. But I think we get Craig Richards versus Zach Parker out there as one of the 5v5 and in the light heavyweight. So what I'm saying is, opportunities will come. Yeah. They will be there. But why the opportunities not there? Why would you not financially? That would be a huge fight. You know, and it's a possible stadium fight, and they could earn a lot of money, and you just go, I don't know where your advice is coming, I don't know what the situation is, but for me, that would be the right move for Anthony Yarde.
On the flip side of that argument, just to play devil's advocate, is if, for example, Anthony was able to push through the fact he wasn't under contract with Queensbury, and then signed with Boxer, it'd be a bloody easy fight to make, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yarde Buatsi, because they'd be in the same stable.
Yeah, but it's an easy fight to make now because the negotiations are ongoing. You know, Frank said Saturday night, look, mate, this is a fight that both parties want, both sides want. And now all of a sudden, I've got Joshua Buatsi texting me saying, Frank, what is going on? Is the fight happening? He said, it's not our side. It's now Anthony Yarde has all of a sudden decided he's a free agent.
Well, I mean, look, we're ruminating on why it could or couldn't happen. I mean, and I want to see Anthony Yarde versus Josh Buatsi. I mean, we saw the last fight with Josh against Dan Aziz. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've got a lot of interest in this light heavyweight division because we've got a superstar coming up with Ben Whittaker. Yeah. We've got world-level fighters in Anthony Yarde that are explosive and exciting. We've just seen a really good fight, British domestic fight between Josh Buatsi and Dan Aziz.
But Yarde versus Buatsi, they're both really well ranked. They're very high in the world rankings. You go, the winner of that, effectively, could fight the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol unless they've got that rematch clause. What I'm saying is, but that's where it places them.
Is a Beterbiev versus Bivol for the undisputed? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, undisputed.
So what they then have
June the 1st.
Yes, I understand that. Yeah. My question was going to be, doesn't that create the same situation then that's just been created in heavyweights? That actually you don't have to fight Beterbiev and you don't have to fight Bivol. One of the belts is going to be scattered, and someone gets a shot at it.
Yeah.
And is there any possibility that maybe that's what's in the works?
Yeah.
That actually Anthony Yarde is looking for the best outcome for himself, and within the confines of whatever wrapper he wants to be under.
Joshua Buatsi is #1 by the WBA though. So what I'm saying is,
well, it depends if it's the WBA belt that gets scattered.
Yeah, no, yeah,
it might be the IBF.
Yeah, no, but yeah, well, no. What I'm saying is that I'm just looking at the situation and the landscape of it, and you go, even if there's a rematch clause in there, you're going to get your shot, and while you're waiting for the shot, and obviously Anthony Yarde thinks he's going to beat Buatsi, you go, you've got a chance to take that position as well.
Again, I'll ask you the question: and I'm just ruminating, I'm thinking as I'm speaking, right? If you've got Beterbiev versus Bivol, and it goes undisputed, and then one of the belts drops away, then you've got Buatsi fighting potentially Yarde for a belt. not just for a domestic challenge, not just because it's a dust-up between two fighters.
Yeah, but what's the timescale between that? And I think that
we've just seen it happen, haven't we? Haven't we just seen Daniel Dubois being made against Filip Hrgović literally a month after the Fury fight, because the belt's going to be scattered.
I think that belt becomes vacant straight away, I believe. Yeah.
Well, there's your answer, isn't it? So we've seen it being done somewhere else. Maybe I'm putting two together.
I'm just trying to work out, which doesn't make any sense at all, because of the relationship, the working relationship with Anthony Yarde and Frank Warren has always been solid. They both get on really well, and for some weird reason, unbeknownst to Frank, because I spoke to Frank about this, and he says, I don't know where it's gone wrong. Well, all we've done is deliver.
Yeah.
I'm just saying from his side of things. I've not spoken to Anthony Yarde, so I wouldn't know.
Well, Frank will know.
Yeah.
He's maybe not prepared to tell you or me, but he'll know the reasons why there's a deterioration, if there is indeed a deterioration. And it might simply be that Anthony Yarde wants to run his contract down with Frank Warren and move on to other things.
Yeah.
And it might be things he can get better commercial deals over us. Interestingly, I'm going to be talking to Callum Smith later on the Upfront show that I do.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't be discounted from this mix. I mentioned him a moment ago because it was alluded to, wasn't it, at one point, that potentially Anthony Yarde could fight Callum Smith.
Yeah.
Obviously, Callum's just come off the back of a defeat to Beterbiev, and had certain observations about it's difficult for him to compute the fact that he may not be the best in the world, but he could be part of the mix as well.
Absolutely. Listen, you're looking at the landscape of the British light heavyweights right now, and Callum Smith and where he's at. Okay, he's fallen short against the world's best. You go, but there is still huge fights that's out there for you. He's not a particularly old man, Callum Smith. He's got a great CV.
34 soon.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I'm saying. So he's still got plenty of time on the clock, really, at that level of Joshua Buatsi, Anthony Yarde. That's an obvious fight for both of them guys will want Callum Smith, and it's an obvious fight. That's where I thought that was going to land in Saudi. Actually, I thought it was going to be a Callum Smith Anthony Yarde originally.
Moving on to a fight that you're going to comment on the weekend, which is the much fated and discussed Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of conversation was about Ryan Garcia's mental state and how he has been seemingly behaving on social media or TikTok or whatever it is. Tic-tac. I think it is tic-tac. Tacky crap.
You're showing your age there,
I'm not
mate.
showing my age. It was a Freudian slip.
All right,
I do think it's tacky.
Answer me this. Can you get on TikTok? Do you know how to get onto it?
No.
Good. Nor do I.
I'm just asking the question. I don't have any idea to get on Instagram. I don't have any idea to get on Instagram, despite your wife sending me lots of pictures. Going back.
Yeah, I want to go back to the pictures.
Go back to the pictures. But the Ryan Garcia-Devin Haney fight, you're commentating. What do you expect to see in this fight?
Do you know what? Listen, stylistically, it's a great fight. These guys have got a history. Boxed 6 times as amateurs. Both won 3 apiece. I think Devin Haney has matured better as a fighter, as a professional. I think that, we look at that. I think moving up to super lightweight for Devin Haney, I think the Lomachenko fight for Devin Haney was one where it made him realise, listen, your days are numbered at lightweight. You need to move up. He moved up, beat Regis Prograis, beat him in style in a fight that I thought was going to be tricky for Haney. So I go, like, that is where he's sat now. That's where he's suited. You go look at Ryan Garcia, the Gervonta Davis defeat. There was question marks there. Could he have got up? Did he swallow it? Left hook to the body. I'm looking at his face. I'm looking at his body language, and I'm going, you can get up, mate. You can get up. And that was a big concern. So that raised question marks straight away. He's had a couple of wins since then. Now he goes into a real fight against Haney. How do I see it going? I believe Haney wins the fight. I mean, he's not had a stoppage, I don't think, since like 2019, something like that. I think it is, Devin Haney. But he's great at controlling things and controlling the space and working fighters out. He's a great, I believe Haney wins wide on points.
Where does Garcia go if he loses again?
Well, it's an interesting one. There's still fights out there for him because he's a big name. He's got a social media presence, and so there'll always be fights there for him. But if he loses, I think his dreams of competing at the top are probably diminished a little bit. If I'm totally honest, I mean, he's still there.
Do you think he's the real deal, or do you think he's a?
I think he's definitely I think he's definitely a good fighter. Is he elite? That remains to be seen. There's question marks there, I think, over that, and I think his mental state of mind right now is a concern. Even still now going into this one, all of a sudden in the last week or so, he's got himself together. That's great. Right. I mean, you only got to look at his social media before that, and it was concerning, and I thought that they should have pulled him out of the fight because I think the behaviour was way too erratic. Yeah, not just like some of the weird stuff that he was saying, but emotionally how he was breaking down and crying, and you just go, this kid is not mentally right. So look, for all those reasons, I think Devin Haney wins this fight clearly on points. talkSPORT are doing this fight, by the way, as well. We've got the rights for that one, so looking forward to that.
Very good. Sonny Edwards is back in the ring?
Yes. Sonny Edwards is back in the ring against a tough Mexican. I did tell our producer, Pat, to put his name in there.
Adrian Curo.
Yeah, there you go.
He doesn't sound very Mexican to me. I haven't met many Mexicans called Adrian.
Yeah, he is Mexican. Double check that for me. I think he is Mexican. Hold on, let me just tell you.
Is he?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, tell you how. You got me going there a little bit. Yeah, no, he's a tough kid. Very tough. But look, Sonny Edwards, we know he's a boxing purist. Like he's boxing at his best, really. Edwards, and I think he runs out a points winner. But yeah, Curo is a tough guy
against the Mexican Adrian.
Yeah. So, listen, it's not me.
No.
Yeah, it's there in black and white.
I've seen it in black and white.
Yeah, good.
It doesn't say Mexico though, but if I'll bow to you.
Yeah, I believe he is Mexican. We better double check that one, but I do believe he is Mexican. What am I talking about? I was watching him on YouTube today. He is Mexican.
Very good. Tequila Mexican?
I think it is. Have you ever eaten the worm? Makes you hallucinate, apparently.
In Cuervo, isn't it? It's in Cuervo Gold.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
No, nor have I.
I've sat opposite a little worm. Good night of boxing you mentioned the weekend?
Yeah, it was a great night of boxing in Manchester at the weekend. Selfa Barrett, I think he done well. I mean, props to Jordan Gill as well, by the way. I mean, it was a real fight up until the finish, really, 10th round.
What does props mean, Spence?
Props.
Yeah, what does it mean? What's it
abbreviate? Like credit.
But what is it? Is it abbreviating something?
Well, yeah, props.
No, but is it an abbreviation? I
don't know. You're going to tell me.
You don't know, do you?
Go on, you tell me.
Don't use words that you don't know.
Props.
No, I don't know what props is.
I've always used it. Yeah, but I do know. I know
it's
what
an
it
abbreviation.
Means.
Don't go gangster on me.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what props means.
No, I'm saying.
I'm asking you if you don't.
Props,
clearly
which means
you don't.
I give him credit.
I get it, right? Why can't you say that?
Just ask me.
Why can't you say I give him credit?
I did.
Well done, chapeau.
No, why do I have to say that?
Because you don't know what props means.
You know what I mean, didn't you?
Well, I kind of try to work it backwards and assumed that it means credit to you.
Props.
Right? But it's an abbreviation of something, isn't it? And I just wanted to know if you knew what it meant.
No, it's just trying to be too smart.
I'm not. I'm just trying to establish that you're not.
You're bullying now.
I'm not.
You're bullying.
I'm not. I'm directing you in the right direction. So you come in here with some. Okay.
No, because everyone will know what I mean. You know what props means, right? That's what I said. Respect.
Is it an abbreviation for proper?
Yeah, I suppose.
Okay. Well, why don't you just say that then?
Because I've always said props.
Because you didn't know, did you?
I said props.
Like Adrian's not from Mexico, he's from
Adrian is from Mexico, by the way.
Okay.
Check that one, Romario. All right. Props to Jordan Gill because, listen, he bit down on his gum shield. I think the writing was on the wall as early as the fourth round. Although it was a close fight and he was having his moments, Gill, in the fourth round he was hurt quite badly to the body. I think that Barrett was setting him up, touching him upstairs, whipping the shot underneath. Brilliant work, and you could slowly see him breaking him down, systematically breaking him down. And I think that Jordan Gill had a good round in the 8th or the 9th. It looked like he was coming back into it. Then Barrett sort of turned the screw, landed the left hook. He went over. He done well to beat the count, to be fair. He got up, but he was in desperate trouble. And Barrett went on to win with another body shot. It was a great performance. Really good. Yeah, so props to Gill for that.
I think it's appropriate, Spence, on a different note and a slightly sadder note, that we pay our respects to the former European, Commonwealth and British champion, Willie Limond, who's sadly passed away today.
Yeah, tragic.
Fought some great fighters, had a pretty decent career, and very sad to lose someone as young as him from the circumstances in which he passed away.
Yeah, it is a very sad situation. You know, Willie Limond had a career going back to 1999. I knew him on a personal note. Lovely guy, really nice guy. And as you said, British, Commonwealth, European champion, boxed the best. Amir Khan, Eric Morales, Anthony Crolla. So I mean, he had an incredible career, and I'm saddened really that he was still boxing at the age of 45. Yeah. He had a seizure, I believe, whilst driving the car, and had an accident. Went into hospital and passed away this morning, which was tragic, really. Yeah, it really was. But saddened that he was still boxing at 45. I mean, I think through his whole career, from 1999 up until he boxed in September, I believe it was, he boxed and lost to Ricky Burns. But through all those years, I think he only had a break from 2016 to 2019. So he was active the whole time. And you know, you've got to ask yourself, you know, I'm saddened that he was still boxing at 45 years of age, but it was his choice. He wanted to do that. You know, he was still competing at a good level. But yeah, it's a tragic story. It really was. Yeah, and my condolences go out to Willie's family.
Absolutely.
You know, he's a beautiful human being. He really was, and a great servant, a Scottish boxing legend.
Sad
loss. And yeah, sad news.
Sad loss. Right, that's it for episode 69 of Talk Boxing. Spencer's going off to do the 5x5 press conference this evening, where no doubt he'll get some props.
Yeah, good stuff.
You heard that, though.